Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiotis. I'm a business strategist where I help business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. And today, I have an awesome guest. He's a globally recognized as a leading futurist, keynote speaker, strategy advisor, best-selling author, and entrepreneur. He has delivered keynote speeches and strategy workshops in over 30 countries across 6 continents for companies such as American Express, Boston Consulting Group, Citibank, Coca-Cola, Google, Microsoft, Oracle, PwC, Visa, Walmart, and many others. And he's the founding chairman of the Advanced Human Technologies Group and of companies and the founder of Bondi Innovation. And he's the author of 5 books, including his most recent book, Thriving on Overload, The 5 Powers for Success in a World of Exponential Information, along with Living Networks, which the New York Times credits with predicting the social networking revolution, the Amazon.com bestseller, Developing Knowledge-Based Client Relationships, and the highly successful Implementing Enterprise 2.0 and Getting Results from Crowds. His frequent media appearances include CNN, Bloomberg, TV, Sky News, ABC Today, Sunrise Shows, the New York Times, among many others, and he has been named as one of the most influential people in the world of work, fintech, crowdfunding, and Enterprise 2.0, and by Digital Media Magazine as one of the 40 biggest players in Australia's digital age. Welcome, Ross Dawson, and thank you for being on my show.
It's a great pleasure.
Awesome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome show for everyone watching and listening today. So, firstly, you're a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us about you and your journey.
Well, it's been quite a journey. I've had a bit of time to add it now. I think actually the long story is relevant to who I am. So I was born in Canberra, but I left very young. My father I got a job with the United Nations. So I went to Geneva, went to the International School of Geneva. So very diverse influences and I suppose perspectives on seeing the world. Went to university and studied physics at Bristol in the United Kingdom, and then came back to Australia. So from that foundation, I worked in computer sales for NCR and then international equities sales for Merryll Lynch, went to Tokyo, worked for Thomson Financial, and ended up running a division of Thomson Financial out of London globally, the capital markets group. So I would always intended to do my own thing. And so the time had come and took some time off and came back to Australia. And from there, really it was always intent on being able to build things which hadn't been done before and, try to do things globally out of Sydney. It's a bit harder from Sydney than it is from New York or London, but it's still well possible, as many other entrepreneurs have found. So it's really a lot. Part of it was really building the profile. Sort of my first books. There's been probably too many ventures to name over time. Sort of some more successful than others, and really keeping to this vision overall of how it is we can bring together talent in particular. This idea of extraordinary talent and how we can bring that together in order to be able to create new models. And I think we've got our classic business models and ways of bringing things together, our classic types of organization of always trying to experiment with new ways to create ventures, create impacts, to be able to bring together things. And, perhaps we can chat about some of those ideas. But it really has been a journey driven by wanting to do things with a positive impact, but also deliberately wanting to do things differently. I mean, it's kind of, for me, it wouldn't be successful if I made lots of money doing the same things of other people were doing. It's always trying to find new ways of doing things.
Yeah, awesome. What an amazing story. I love that, hear the background and that diverseness and what you're doing now. And firstly, I love the term futurist. I will say you're the only futurist I know, Ross. There's not many out there, and a lot of people probably even haven't heard this term before. So I'd love to hear how would you explain the definition of what a futurist is? Tell us more about that.
So for me, a futurist is someone who helps people and organizations to think about the future better so that they can act better today. And so predictions are maybe sometimes useful, sometimes not useful, but that's not the point. And the fact that I have some insight into the future, and I suppose some of my, books have, I suppose, suggested that I do have some perspective on the future, sort of ahead of sometimes ahead too far of what's happening. That's not useful. That's my own thing, and that's where, as an entrepreneur, I try to play to where I think things are going. But my role as a futurist, and why people hire me in my role, is in order to give them other perspectives, additional frames to help them think more and more usefully about the future, what it might do, only to the effect that they can act better today. And a lot of that framing for me is to recognizing the positive potential. And so that's the critical frame, is understanding there are challenges. There's always challenges with change, but there are also opportunities. And the faster the pace of change, arguably the greater the challenges and the greater the opportunities. So that's my role, is to work with leaders and organizations to help them understand the nature of change so that they can see the positive potential and act on that to create value.
Yeah, I love it. Really great definition there, really powerful. And, it stems well with business innovation, like you were talking about, right? It's always important to stay ahead of the competition, or be in the blue ocean where, you're doing your own thing, so to speak, apart from the competition. So I'd love to hear from your perspective of how do you approach innovation? Because there's a lot of different ways. I've done an MBA as well, and there's different ways of looking at innovation. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around how you approach it, and how to be a bit different, for people that are wanting to change the game.
Well, the context is very important. So for me, or for startups, there's, or again, even then, a whole set of frames. But I also run the Directing Innovation program for the Australian Institute of Company Directors. And that's a very different frame, where these are directors. And so that's one frame of locus of influence for very large established organizations. But the way I think about innovation is the making of the new. So whatever it is that is new. So that is, if you're a startup, it's all new, but you're trying to do things in ways which haven't been done before. It's being able to perceive opportunity. I think that comes back to that futurist frame of there is change. So where do you see opportunity? So in a startup frame, you're also saying the world is changing. Where will opportunities to create value reside, or where do they already reside in the world that we have? For established organizations, and there's a number of different categories of innovation. There's product or service innovation, there is organizational innovation, there's process innovation, there is strategy innovation. And if you're working, when I work with leaders of larger organizations, it's understanding, well, what are the different types of innovation? Where can innovation, the making of the new, happen in your organization? All right, we create a new product, or we reinvent our business strategy, or we reorganize ourselves in new ways, or we improve our processes, or we improve our marketing, the ways in which we deliver our products to market. These are all types of innovation, and all are important. None of those you can stay the same. We always need to be making ourselves anew. The world is always changing. So if you stay static, you'll be left behind. You always need to be making yourselves anew. And some of those are quite, embedded into business processes. Oh, we, as an organization, we're always creating new products. Oh, that's fine. And do you need to improve the pace? Are there ways to improve that? Are there ways you can create products which have a greater impact? But the frame for a leader in saying is, which of those types of innovation is the most important now? And that's where you start to allocate your resources, how you organize, you lead, you frame, you shift culture in order to innovate in those frames. So because innovation is the making of the new, which we always need to be doing in a changing world, it is, it needs to be the foundation of what an organization is, but it is around how it is, what are the priorities in particular around that, and where, what it is that supports that, be they processes, be they culture, be they organizational structures, be they templates, be they reward structures. There's any number of, I suppose, levers that we can apply in order to be able to support effective innovation.
Yeah, awesome. Love that model of thinking a bit differently, a bit of a framework there on how to innovate really well. And I'd love to delve into some key, trends and things that I'm seeing at the moment. But first, I'd love to open it up to you, because I'm sure you've got a wider lens than what I do with what you do. So what key trends and developments do you see, I guess, expanding or even contracting in the future?
Oh, well, that's a way we could spend days and days and days to try to answer that question. So it's what's relevant to again, it depends on context, on who you are as an organization. Are you one person startup? Are you organization? What industry are you in? As to what is shifting. We can think of, there's a whole different structures, futures methodologies to be able to think around the categories of the types of things that are emerging. And I think, the three broad categories that I usually bring into, framing things for leaders is in terms of technological change. Fairly obviously, there's many technologies that are impacting the structure of how value is created. In terms of social shifts, so which is both how are we changing in our behaviors, in our attitudes, in the ways in which we interact with the world individually, and then collectively, how are our social attitudes changing? How's the structure of society changing? How are the political elements? And finally, the changing structure to value creation, where we have moved from, very classic, you buy things and make them into products and sell them in, linear value chains, through to, essentially where it is all about networks and ecosystems. And these are all shifting, again, of course, advanced by technological support. So within each of those domains, in terms of technologies, in terms of social shifts, and in terms of business structure, or the structure of value creation, there's different things which are relevant to each of those. Now, in the terms of the technology domains, I think if we think about society, our expectations are always increasing, and that's driving more and more opportunities. And I think we need to be always focusing on how are people changing, how are their behaviors changing, what it is they expect, what are the different shifts in that. And that is being driven by new technology that are emerging in different fronts. And I think two domains which I think are particularly relevant now. One, I suppose, the extremely obvious one of artificial intelligence, and how that's being deployed, and the role of humans relative to that. But also in terms of our interfaces between us and computers and us machines, rising from not just text and keyboards and screens to now things like gesture interfaces, eye gaze tracking, brain-computer interfaces. These are some of the trends which are really shifting the nature of how it is we exist in our world.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Really, really powerful. Thanks for the overall three areas. I love that. And yes, you could talk about this, like you said, for days. So let's get a bit more specific now on talking about a few of these. So just quickly on the interfaces, because that's something that I haven't really been thinking of much about that. So tell us a little bit more about, I guess, how they're used today, and then maybe how that will change over time, whether it's, unlocking something with your face or something like that, or is it more than that, about how that will, change over time?
So the evolution has been, we can all track that over time in terms of, anybody who's been around technology for a long time will, refer back to what was called the mother of all demos, where Doug Engelbart demonstrated the mouse and the screen-based user interface. And so this, essentially, for decades now, we've been using a screen sitting in front of us, a keyboard, QWERTY keyboard, and a mouse. And so the major evolution in all this was the smartphone. That's where we started to have a new interface for what is now a majority of our interactions for most people. So this is something where we hold that, it's a smaller screen. We can use touch to be able to interact with the screen. That's really one of the most dramatic evolutions in our interfaces, and to be able to tap on the screen to be able to guide, text and a variety of other things. So that's where we are today, where the smartphone has added to the existing, computer technologies. So now the next phase, so some of the most important ones, first of all, is where we have facial recognition to the point of emotion, where we start to our emotion, our facial expressions, our eye gaze. And so eye gaze is very important. So for example, we can start to use our eye gaze to show, rather than pressing a button, we can look at it and it can, respond. Again, if we let it do so. And the other critical one, which is of course evolved, is voice, where now we're using more and more voice to be able to control things. And so we start to have voice intonation, where we are looking, the emotions on our face to be able to respond to things. One of the next phases, which looks like it's not going to be quite as soon as expected, is using augmented glasses to be able to control what is around us. So those who already have glasses, when we can, in relatively lightweight, include the ability to see things on the screen, so we don't need to pull things out of our pocket, hold those in the hand, and look down at them. That's going to be another critical interface. And the next one is really various aspects of brain-computer interfaces. So it's quite a long journey, and generally where we'll have what we call invasive brain interfaces, where we require surgery. But one of the very interesting developments of last year was that Snap, so of course, which runs Snapchat, but also has its Snap glasses, has bought essentially a brain-computer interface company, which has a little headset where you can use your thoughts to control the world. And so fairly evidently, they are looking to be able to incorporate using your thinking, be able to control your glasses and what it is you see and what may go into Snapchat or other types of interfaces. So, these are some of the, I suppose, thinking about some of the evolution of how it is that we interface with technology.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Love that. Really powerful. Thank you for sharing where it's going. And yes, looking forward to seeing where that will go. I'm always a bit interesting about invasive surgery into the brain, but this other version of Snap sounds a lot better to start with at the same time. So love that. Let's get into AI, because like you said, that's a massive one that's happening now. There's a lot of different technology platforms that are using it. The most biggest one that's on everybody's lips right now is ChatGPT as well, of course, with that coming out recently, and thinking that it's going to get rid of a lot of jobs, because of whether it's copywriting or other things like that as well. But there's so many different areas of AI, with video, with a lot of other things that AI is doing stuff that I see. But I'd love to hear from your perspective of what's it being used in at the moment that you're seeing that's really innovative, but also where is it going to go in changing business as well as life as well.
So my major theme for this year is humans plus AI. And so this whole frame of how humans and AI complement each other. And this really goes to a lot of the work I've done for the last couple of decades. So I've been pulling this in the frame of the future of work. Where is work going? There's long been debates around the degree to which technology would result in job losses. And some time ago, I came to the conclusion that we are going to have continue to have strong employment for as long as we can imagine, where we will continue to restructure what it is we do so that there may be roles or activities or tasks or things that have been done in the past by people now done by technology, but we will continue, as we have done for millennia, to reshape our work so that we continue to have work for we will be creating work for people. And so in terms, the most obvious way in which AI is being used now is essentially content creation. A lot of fairly crude and basic ways that's been used at the moment, beginning to be a few which are using it in more relevant ways. But this, pulling to where this is all going, is to where we will have every organization will continue to hire people, and they will more and more integrate AI into their processes. And this is more about building a modular workflow where every activity, every task, every job will involve both humans and technology. And this is more about modularizing, bring it down to those elements where we have tasks where humans are superior, individually or collectively, and they do that task. They then have some element of that task performed by AI. They may then be either reviewing or editing or supporting or assessing or approving whatever that activity of the AI, to be able to then pass that on to other human or other AI to be able to move that in turn. So now we are reconfiguring, redesigning the whole structure of work for organizations. And that's completely relevant from startups through to massive multinational corporations. It is this breaking down into elements. And so this is part of this is assessing what is it that humans are best at? What is it that's AI best at? How can we bring those together, interface those, I suppose, build them in sequence so that we can create the outcomes that we want and value creation. And that boundary is always changing as to what a human does best and what an AI does best as we get more technology. But we're continuing to see humans in those roles. One of the critical things is not just to be able to redesign these workflows and the technologies and ways they can be best used by humans in that workflow, but developing skills of humans so that we can best use those technologies to be able to drive value in these new structures for how humans and AI together are creating value.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. I love the connection there of together, like you said, because I've looked at some of these things online, and yes, you definitely need to think about how I use them to the best advantage. So that'll be definitely probably a whole business in itself of how to really get the most out of AI, which I love as well. And something you touched on there was, how we work. And COVID's, obviously created a very virtual working environment, right, where we had to with being locked down. And now there seems to be quite a hybrid model of working. And depending on the business, some companies are like, oh, let's do virtual forever. Then the rest of them are like, you have to come into the office 5 days a week now globally, right, in different areas. Or, maybe it's like 2 days a week here and there, 3 days. So I'd love to hear, because then obviously, it's easier to an extent to build a culture if you're there and you get those water cooler conversations and things, which are maybe a bit more challenging unless you have a specific set of technology out there to allow that these days in a virtual sense. So I'd love to hear from your perspective of what you're seeing with, working environments, of where that's heading to now as well.
So as you've suggested, we've moved squarely to the hybrid work, and even those organizations that are as forcing as they can, sort of the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 is still, they're if people for whatever reason can't be there, then they're still, there's obviously working remotely in various guises, or doing that when after they get home in the evenings, as often as the case. So, essentially almost all work is hybrid and bring those together in structures. So this is one of the points where, for a long time, I pointed to the divergence in organizations, that there are more and more different ways in which organizations are becoming more different rather than more and more the same. And one of those junctures being in how companies use social technologies, where some they are embedded in the structure of how things work, others they have been, taken out or not used, and essentially each of ways in these social tools or technology used in organizations amplifies the culture of that organization. So one of the other choices in organizations is how they use technology, how they use AI. And again, there's many ways in which you can do that. You can try to replace people wholesale. You can not use very much. You can build more modularized workflows. There's more and more, infinite possibilities for how you integrate technologies. And now, sort of prompted by there's always had these choices, but now with COVID, we've had this prompting of more and more divergence in organizations and how they structure in the office and beyond. But this does go back to this point of the interfaces, where essentially everyone is using a video conferencing tool, and then often some kind of internal messaging tool. So the next generation is how is that we get to richer types of interaction. And of course, some are talking about the metaverse as a place where we can have richer interactions, make it feel like we're in a meeting room and looking around at the people, the avatars of the people around us, as opposed to just being a bunch of boxes on a screen with images. But also getting higher and higher resolution types of interfaces, where we can have quasi 3D types interfaces, and ones where we're starting to push that. So the types of technologies of communication at distance and the way they improve that are fundamental. We can't assume, we shouldn't assume that the fact that we are sitting in front of computer screens with video images of the person on the other side is where it ends. We do have to push more and more in terms of those more immersive, higher resolution ways of interacting. And the reality is we can discern incredibly fine distinctions in how people's faces are. There's micro muscle movements and so on in people's faces and so on, which are just not possible even on high resolution screens. But that is part of what is lost by being at a distance rather than close at hand. So we need to try to, technologies will continue to get us closer to this feeling of being in the same room, even though we are physically distant. And that is a journey which, will take decades to get to where potentially the point where it's hard to discern whether we are in the same room as somebody or whether they are very distant. And that's moving towards that. But the other thing is around going back to the workflows, how it is that people are collaborating and working together to create value. The reason organization exists, as opposed to being a whole set of individuals, is that you can do things together better than you can individually. And so it's around being able to tap that effectively. So a lot of the distinction has been made is that as we shift to a now, where we are not necessarily in the same place, we're moving more and more to asynchronous work, where we're not necessarily in the same room or talking to the same person. We build the structures to be able to support that. That requires a shift of how it is we think, how about that we go about things, but to optimize the times when we are together. And again, it's not just about humans plus AI, where it's all right, we've got humans plus AI, but how do the humans and AI collaborate as well together? But how can the humans collaborate with each other as effectively as possible? And this goes to the broader point of collective intelligence. And that's something which I've been interested in and developing my thinking about since the 1990s, is how it is we can actually, as much as possible, make a group of people more intelligent, able to tap all of their capabilities and use their perspectives as broadly as possible. So more and more the race of organizations is not just to be able to incorporate AIs, but to really literally tap the best on the potential of the people within them, individually and collectively.
Yeah, awesome. Love that, Ross. Really, really powerful there. And One thing you mentioned, I'd love to go a little bit deeper on, is the metaverse, because it is being speaking a lot more now, right? With now it's probably going to take, like you said, a lot of years. We're seeing some of these avatar type things happening now in the metaverse, but it'd be interesting to see, because obviously there's, like, for example, the movie Ready Player One. I think movies are a great way to see about where things could potentially go, right? And they're playing this game, and it's extremely realistic, and it sort of goes to the conversation: are we already in the Matrix or not? Right, with how we are as humans, which is probably another big topic, which we can talk about another time. But it's like you said, how indistinguishable it is to real reality and everything that we get. So I'd love to hear, I guess, evolution. What's the next step in how to use this metaverse? Because I see a lot of traction, in it. I think that's, like, apart from AI, that's to me a massive one on how things will change over time. And where do you see it, I guess, going in the short term as well as long term there?
The critical thing, well, there's a couple of critical things. One is the quality of the technology, essentially, and the pace of development. So one of the very interesting news items over the last week, I think the last week, was that it's still a rumor, so still to be confirmed, but that Apple is discontinuing its plans, any firm plans for its so-called eyeglasses, its smart glasses, but it's doubling down on its mixed reality headset. Long anticipated, still hasn't launched, with an initial price point $3,000 US, and they're trying to now say, okay, we're going to double down on be able to cut the price to something closer to an iPhone. So this is where we require far, as I alluded to before, we need far higher screen resolution. So the best of the screens in the VR headsets at the moment is essentially giving us around 8K, 8 million pixels per eye, and that's still, given that is our entire field of view, it is still pretty crude resolution and be able to see the world. So we do require for this to be able to start to replicate what it is we can, or get closer to what it is we can see in real life, to really, for example, to be more immersive. We require substantially higher screen resolution. Another of the key issues in headsets is latency, how tied the movement of the images to the screen, or the response in terms of the regeneration of the images with what we are doing. So these are still developing relatively slowly in the big picture of saying, all right, this imagination of the Ready Player One, what that might be like to be in, where that's set, I think, late 2040s or something. And that's the kind of timeframes which are looking at for where we can start to get the types of really, truly immersive headset experience. But the other critical domain is that these are, how long are we going to want to keep a headset on during the day? And I don't think that, we're not going to have it on all day. It's just not going to happen. That's for partly in terms of just the comfort on our face, however good we get the quality of them. And the second is in terms of just taking ourselves away from reality, from just being where we are. So I think essentially we are going to be having to look for the use cases, whereas it in our day, in our interaction, that we want to, what it's worth, be able to put on a headset and spend our time cut off from reality to be in the space. What are the use cases? It could be, very obviously, for example, a meeting where you have a specific agenda and you're working through that. Or, for example, where you are doing a tour of a facility. All right, we want to go around, we want to show you what is happening in this plant where you will be working from now on, and we're going to educate you and show you, and that happens in a period of time. So more and more this is around, first of all, the gradual, what will be gradual in the big picture development of the technologies, and be able to make sure that we have the right use cases for the technology as within our working day.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Love that. Really powerful distinction there with how we're going to use it in different elements there. And another one, I'm seeing a lot more of now is Web 3.0, as they call it, right? And then that's, to my understanding, is using blockchain, in what we're doing in the internet. So there's a lot more focus on that now. You see people using it in platforms, on how they interact with people and using that technology, which is sort of the evolution of the internet, right? Over time, how it's evolved a lot from the good old dial-up days to where it is now. So where do you see this is, Web 3.0 going and the internet going, I guess, over the next 10 years and beyond?
There's been a lot of missed opportunities with Web 3. And I was actually just chatting to a venture capital investor a couple of days ago, and expressing that my skepticism in Web 3 as it stands today. So the vision is still extraordinarily powerful for what we can achieve with a distributed web, which is essentially what Web 3 is. The challenge, starting with the challenge, it's that there is, once you start getting coins attached to Web 3 initiatives, it starts to become speculative, and everyone gets tied to the potential for financial gains as opposed to the underlying utility of the products. So, and that essential dynamic of the ways in which Web3 initiatives are structured is going to massively impede the development of these initiatives. And so we've seen, of course, development over the last 6 months in particular, which have massively negatively impacted the entire crypto space. And essentially, crypto and Web3 are tied together, through their underlying structure, and the fact that often coins are used in Web3 initiatives. So I think that's an important context for what will massively slow the potential of Web3 initiatives. But having said that, the frame of distributed value creation, I think, is fundamental to where the economy is going. And this is actually a theme which I talked about, amongst other things, in Living Networks over 20 years ago, and I still look at in terms of underlying structure. So what we will start to see at its best, and the best examples, is that we have initiatives, organizations start to organize themselves on these principles. So the most compelling within all of this is what I call the DAOs, the distributed autonomous organizations, which to this point are still far below their potential. Essentially, structures where people vote on outcomes within the business. There is no one single owner. Some of them interesting, but only still very early. But the original vision of distributed autonomous organizations, as envisaged by Vitalik Buterin when he proposed them some years ago. So Vitalik is the founder of Ethereum, and probably the most respected person in blockchain space. And his vision was that we start to see essentially that instead of having the traditional organization where humans are at the center in terms of making the decisions and flowing things through, to having, essentially giving that task to technology or work humans to do, to flipping that around to saying that technology is the center and that allocates work to humans to do. So in this concept, which I was describing of humans plus AI, it's instead of just having this workflow, we start to actually have the technologies which make sure that the humans are doing the work which adds the most value, individually or collectively, and that is managed by the algorithm that is the organization. This is a compelling vision for what organization, or one manifestation of what organizations can become. And so that's where I think the potential of Web3 is. Essentially, we start to see more and more organizational forms. Again, to the point I was making earlier, more and more varieties of organizational forms, more and more different structures by which we bring together humans and technology. We start to see ones which are leaderless, in the sense of that they are essentially a combination of the coordination of ideas from humans and ideas from, which are coordinated by the technology.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Really, really powerful distinctions there on where that's heading. And it segues well into the financial world, because you've got a lot of experience, in the financial industry. And I want to hear about it from the lens of cryptocurrency, right? Because it's changing a lot. It's being used more by financial institutions now these days, social media applications, etc. now, less and less ATMs, where you can take money out are happening. I'm seeing this here in Australia anyway, right? So I'd like to hear your thoughts about, I guess, the future of money, where that's heading. Is there still going to be an element of cash? Is everything going to be, using crypto for everything else? It's still going to be standard, financial institutions compared to crypto? I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you're seeing out there and where do you think it's heading?
Well, again, that's a massive topic, but I suppose the summary view is that cash is not going to disappear for the foreseeable future. And there's a number of demands for cash. Part of it is simply the black market economy, where people still want cash. People want the degree of privacy that cash offers. And it's also correlated to the lack of trust in institutions, including government, or including banks, and including government, where it's still this idea that this has value, will retain. So Sweden is the country which has most reduced its degree of cash. Can't remember the specific figures, and it's getting close to cash not having a place, but they don't see cash disappearing entirely at any point either. We will have digital currencies. Well, we do have digital currencies. We'll have more digital currencies. And the primary question, if we think of scenarios for the future of money, is the degree to which those digital currencies will be government driven. So that's the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies, or that they are non-government, such as your Bitcoins or Ethereums or other coins. And at this point, there seems to be a pretty clear that, well, it's most likely by far at the moment that the central bank digital currencies, the government endorsed currencies, are going to predominate. So this requires the government to be able to pull it together. So there's many countries, again, Sweden, there's China, UK, some of the ones which are most advanced in the digital currencies. Australian government is beginning to experiment with those. So one of the reasons for them being more likely to dominate is twofold. Well, I mean, there's manyfold, but two of the most important reasons are that the governments have been effective in being able to manage the flows in and out of cryptocurrencies, where it's not impossible, but it's harder and harder to get Australian, US, Japanese, whatever currency into crypto without governments being aware of that in the first instance. And also that the lack, at this point, significant lack of trust in crypto in the broader sense. And there's many reasons for that, not just, what we've of course seen unfold with FTX and so on over the last little while, but also that there's a lot of almost anybody that's been in crypto space for a long time has had money stolen or lost. It's essentially, it's very, very, very hard to be able to keep crypto and to keep it secure over over extended periods. And so it's not necessarily as good a store of value because of its, I suppose, more likely to be able to be hacked in various guises. And essentially, this is no longer seen. This after the various ups and downs and cycles and roller coasters of crypto over quite a few years now, there are still some true believers, but there's far more people who haven't questioned the degree to which these are stores of value, including, of course, the so-called stable coins, which are supposed to be pegged to a currency and but have not always managed to succeed at that.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing your thoughts around where that's going. Very interesting developments. We'll see what the governments do in the near future there. And, you're an author of 5 books, and in your latest book is called Thriving on Overload, the 5 powers for success in a world of exponential information. So, yeah, tell us more about it and how it can help us.
I think we need to understand that humans are information processing machines. When we are born, when we're a baby, we are looking at our environment. We're getting information from our senses, which is, what color is this? How does this respond? What is this sound that my parents are making? And be able to interpret that. And as a base of that, to work out how it is that we can act to get what we want, to be able to create our lives. And we learn, we take in information, various guises, and all work today is essentially taking information, knowing what's going on, be able to see things, be able to build our models, and to be able to act as a result. Now, our world has changed dramatically. So our brains are changing, but not very fast. The world is changing far faster around us, and we are being barraged by information in what were previously unimaginable ways. So at all moments, there's a lot of people that are exposing themselves to information at all moments through the day, from waking up and checking their social media and the updates and the email through to the end of the day when they switch off. So this is basically, this doesn't work well. Our brains are not built for these. So we need to work out in this world of overload how it is we can be as successful as possible. This is, in a way, the key factor for success, our ability to, in a world washed with information, to take what is useful, to leave what is not useful, and to be able to use that to create value. And that's not just about being able to achieve better work outcomes, be able to see the opportunities first, to be able to make sense of the world, be able to make better decisions, but also in terms of our happiness, and our health, and our balance, where we're not able to achieve if we are taking in information all the time, which is not that which serves us well. We can get depressed, a bit of an affliction today in society, and what not unrelated to the pervasive information, and get sucked into the more of this doom scrolling and constant updates, and not doing the work which is going to improve our lives through achieving our successes and so on. So Thriving on Overload just points to the ways in which we can, it's a guide, really a guidebook, a very pragmatic guidebook to how it is that we can make sense of a world, decide what's most important to us, to be able to filter information effectively, to build knowledge from that, to be able to control our attention, to be able to pull that together, to be able to make the decisions that will drive value in the world.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds really powerful. I'll definitely be getting it and delving into it very soon. And yeah, it's been a powerful episode today, Ross. And as we're wrapping up here, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
It's to take a step back. And the thing is, we're always caught up in there's so much to do. There's always things to do. And I've got a lot of things to do today, amongst other things. And so we have to take a pause and step back. And then one of the reasons is, of course, to continue to be aware of our purpose, our direction, what is guiding us, to make sure that we're spending time on the priorities. But frame of that information, it is being able to be able to take a step back to say, well, what is it that is truly useful to me, and what serves me, and what isn't? And what, taking a step back, what is it should I stop doing, including some of my digital information activities, and what is it that I should be spending time on without interruptions, developing my ability to focus. And I think that's critical to understand how it is that you can improve your own information habits through the day.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Extremely powerful. And yeah, we connected through our networks. Learned about your awesome journey from, being in the financial sector to founding multiple businesses and becoming a futurist, where you focus on where business is heading, as well as society and overall in general. And you're an awesome guy, extremely knowledgeable, a lot of wisdom there. And I'm sure you continue to help businesses and people create their ideal future. Very grateful that we connected, and I look forward to working with you. So Ross, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
So rossdawson.com for just general information about my work, a lot of resources there, free book chapters and so on. Thrivingonoverload.com includes not just my book, but I also have the podcast Thriving on Overload. We have a course which helps people to optimize their information activities, and we have a whole set of other resources there. And LinkedIn is where I share the most these days on various resources, but also on Twitter. I'm pretty easy to be found.
Awesome. Definitely check out the websites, guys, and Ross's key social media channels. They're powerful. So awesome today with what he's shared with us, and I'm sure you get a lot more with him once you follow and reach out and learn more from Ross. And thank you to everyone for watching and listening to this show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. And I completely agree with you, or do I? But the only way we know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.